Happy Father's Day. The whole purpose of that video was to get you hyped. So that was the whole purpose. Can't think of a better way for us to get pumped this morning. Thanks for being here on Father's Day. Really looking forward to our time here together. If I haven't met you before, my name is Jared Cash. I'm the campus pastor here, and I'm looking forward to getting to share a little bit with you here this morning. The last couple weeks, we've been in a series called Summer Playlist, if you've been here. And the whole purpose is this. We all, for the most part, if not every single one of us, have put together some sort of playlist before. It's a combination of songs for a specific purpose. Maybe it was to have a birthday party, you wanted to have the playlist, or you're going on a road trip, wanted to have that playlist. You needed something to get you hyped to run or work out, you put together a playlist. So we're doing something similar, and this summer we are going to be talking about some important topics, putting together a playlist of things that we need to address and focus on so that we can have the trajectory in life that we really want. So today, the title for the summer playlist song that I'm adding is called this, The Power of No. There will be some aspects of today's message that relate specifically to men and to fathers, but as a whole, this message is going to relate to all of us in some very practical ways. But to get us going this morning, I have a question for us all. When ordering at a restaurant, have you ever felt a lot of pressure? And for many, there's just an anxiety that comes with just ordering in general. But what I'm referring to is the pressure because there are so many items on the menu that you just look at it and it causes you to be overwhelmed. Some restaurants have menus that are bigger than old school phone books. They are just huge. And the restaurant that comes to mind for me is the Cheesecake Factory. Anyone ever eaten a Cheesecake Factory? Yeah, most of us here. If you've been there, you know that it's impossible to look through the Cheesecake Factory menu and not get a little bit overwhelmed. It's not just the number of items on the menu, it's the fact that all of it looks and sounds delicious. So it just makes the whole experience a little bit overwhelming. I'm sure that the servers get annoyed. They know the first time they go over to the table, like the whole table is going to be on page 3 of 45, and it's going to need a lot more time to make their choice. And I don't know this for a fact, but I imagine that when the restaurant was started, they didn't have hundreds of items on their menu. But over time, more and more items got added, and it grew to what it is today. In a similar fashion, your life and my life can end up looking a lot like the Cheesecake Factory menu. If we're not careful, as time goes on, more and more things get added to the menu of our life. More options are presented in front of us, more demands, more requests, and options that we have to decide how we're going to spend each minute of each hour of each day, making it more complicated, more demanding, and more exhausting. There's always going to be responsibility at work that grows. The school schedule picks back up. A family member or friend needs a little bit more assistance than usual. You get married, kids enter the picture. Kids get older and they start getting into more extracurricular activities. The menu gets longer and longer. The options grow. There's more demands. There's more requests. There's more situations. But here's the thing. The day stays the same length. No matter who you are, no matter what you do, you only have this number up on the screen. You only have 1,440. That represents the minutes within 24 hours. No matter who you are, no matter what you do, you only have 1,440 minutes each day. Just because more things get added to the menu of your life doesn't mean that more minutes are added to your day. So how we decide to use those minutes of each day, of each week, really matters. How you decide to use those minutes, 1,440 minutes, really dictates the quality of your life in many aspects. And there are some factors, some menu items that are on our plate, on our schedule that we don't dictate. They're things that we have no choice but to do. You can't always dictate your workload and what's assigned to you. You can't just be like, nah, that doesn't sound good to me. I'm not going to add that to my plate. Some things we just have to do. The kids have to be fed. You can't take them to a buffet and feed them and say that's going to last you for the next 4 days. Like each day you got to feed your kids. Bills have to be paid. There's certain things that we just know are going to be a part of our day and our schedule and our menu of a life. But if we really started to examine our lives and our week, you probably have more control over a lot more minutes than you think and you realize throughout the week. Beyond the daily blocks of time where you have to work, where you take care of essential needs and so on, there's a certain amount of minutes each day that's left that has not yet been accounted for. And what you end up doing in those moments are typically decided by two words. They're extremely powerful words. I'm sure you already know where I'm going. Those two words are yes and no. There will always be people tugging at you. There will always be people asking for help with something. Social media will be drawing you in. Your boss will be asking if you can work late another night during the week. There will always be pressure to do life how it's always been done or how you pictured life should be done. And your menu of life decisions rarely shrink on their own. And you have to decide what additional items are going to be added to my life's menu or not. So the question for today is, how can you use the words yes and no to help dictate the kind of pace that you really want in your life? Because unfortunately, many times our default answer is yes. We tend to say yes to requests and options that are placed in front of us, even if we know that saying yes is not the best thing for our lives. And sometimes it's because there's a lot of different pressures that we have to go up against. It could be the pressure to please everyone. We want to make our friends happy. We want to fit in. We want to impress our boss or our coworkers. We want to grow in our company and get promoted. We want to be noticed as a top student. We don't want to let other people down. And so we end up finding ourselves increasing the pace of our life by saying yes to too many things. It could be a comparison pressure. It appears that everyone around us is headed down life's road a lot faster and farther than we are. And we start looking and they have a bigger house. They go on more vacations. They have this type of family. And so we want to keep up. And so we keep adding more and more of whatever seems necessary to get us to where they are. It could be cultural pressure. We've become a society that believes you always have to be doing something. And if you're not, you're lazy or you're boring. And so we feel this pressure to always be having activity after activity happening, or always be adding or learning something that we can then improve our lives with, and not just be doing that, but then letting everyone else know around us the things that we're adding, the things that we're doing. I wrestle with a guilt that I'm sure comes from cultural pressure of that I didn't do enough in the day. I get to the end of the day and I'm like, I just feel like I probably should have done more tasks, got more things done, and I can't rest, I can't be content until I complete just a little bit more that day. Maybe it's just that you don't know any different. Growing up, you saw your parents live like this. Your friends, your neighbors are always on the go. Being busy is just the norm. We tend to follow whatever we see happening around us. Whatever the reason may be, if we don't intentionally and purposely make the necessary adjustments, we will continue to follow the same pattern of saying yes too often to too many things, and as a result, we add way too many additional items to the menu of our life. And guess what happens when this goes on for too long? Nothing good. Nothing good is the result of living like this. Our health suffers. The aspects of the life that we really care about suffer the most. And here's the reason. And it's going to be our bottom line for today. When you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. It's not rocket science. That's definitely not rocket science, but it makes a lot of sense. When you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. It's not possible to say yes to everything. Something or someone always ends up getting the short end of the stick. And typically, the person who gets the short end of the stick is you or the people that you care about the most. So, for the rest of our time here together, let's look at the power of no and what it looks like to start creating a menu of our life that improves our overall health, that helps us love and lead people in the way that we really want to. Believe it or not, this is something that Jesus had to deal with. He came to earth, he grew up, he wasn't given this weekly schedule. Here's how you're going to spend your time. He had to manage this same tension that you and I manage on a regular basis. But if you start to examine the life of Jesus, you see that Jesus was rarely, if ever, in a hurry. You don't read about his life and be like, man, Jesus was on a full-on sprint all the time. He was constantly running as fast as he could. You look at his life and he was not in a hurry, even if everyone else around him was in a hurry. Jesus said no to people in the Bible. Oftentimes, Jesus would say no to good things. But even 2,000 years ago, Jesus knew something, that we're starting to realize today. When he said yes to something, he'd be saying no to something else. A man named George Niederauer said this: Jesus said no when a yes did not fit in with the yes to his Father. Let me show you. I have some examples for us to walk through really quick. Jesus said no to ordinary human requests. Here are some of them. Let me bury my father before I follow you. Jesus said no. That's in Matthew 8. Tell my sister to help me with the housework. Jesus said no. Luke 10. Tell my brother to be fair with me about our inheritance. Jesus said no. Luke 10. There are also demands of friends and the crowd around him. Call down fire from heaven to destroy those towns that reject you. Jesus said no. Luke 9. Work a sign for us right here, right now. Jesus said no. Matthew 12. Do here in your own town the things that we heard you did in Capernaum. Jesus said no. Luke 4. Jesus used this powerful word no quite a bit. An example I want us to focus on in a little bit more detail is found in Mark 1, starting in verse 29. Mark is a book of the Bible in the New Testament. It's written by a guy named Mark. Hard to believe, but it's the New Testament, Matthew, Mark. So it's the second book in our New Testament. And Mark tells us that Peter, a close friend of Jesus, brought Jesus to his home in hopes that Jesus would heal his mother-in-law. Brownie points for Peter with his wife. That was great that Peter did that. So he wants Jesus to come. Jesus does come. He heals the mother-in-law. She's healed. The fever left, and she immediately begins to wait on them, which is kind of funny to think about. She's about to die, and then Jesus heals her, and she immediately pops up, and she's like, you guys want water or sweet tea? Like, what are we doing here? I'm just kidding. I don't think they had sweet tea 2,000 years ago. But she immediately starts to help them out. And news of Jesus grows immediately from this even more. And even that evening, tons of people start to come to Jesus wanting to be healed of their sickness or to have Jesus cast out a demon of their loved one. And Jesus starts to heal a lot of these people that are coming to him. And here's a verse that I shared a couple weeks ago as I talked about getting away from the noise and the chaos of the world around us and having some time to get away and just have solitude and to listen and talk with God. It's this verse 35. Very early in the morning, while it's still dark, Jesus got up, he left the house and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Jesus started his day with one of his daily rhythms, getting away from the chaos, getting away from the noise, and spending just with God, his Father, to be replenished, to be reminded of his purpose. He had just spent a super busy day teaching and healing people and having these conversations, and he knew he needed to have some moments of rest to be filled up before he went back out. Verse 36, we see this. Simon, Peter, and his companions went to look for him, and when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Peter and the disciples, they bring more choices to Jesus's menu. I don't think they have bad intentions here. They're just letting Jesus know that he's a popular guy and lots of people are coming to see him. They want to be healed. They tell him there's someone that brought their friend that wants you to heal him because he's blind, or someone who's deaf has made their way to you. They want you to heal them. Parents brought their son to you who's demon-possessed, and they're begging that you'll drive out this demon so that their son can come back to them. They know that Jesus has the power to heal. And it's not the disciples came to him and let him know, hey, Jesus, there's a pickup basketball game that we want you to join, which is a legitimate question and offer, but doesn't have quite the same value or weight. This is something that was really important. They were coming, letting Jesus know that there's people who want to be healed. There are legitimate problems that Jesus could help with. But Jesus responds differently than expected. We see this in verse 38. Jesus replied, "Let us go somewhere else to the nearby villages so I can preach there also. That is why I've come." So he traveled throughout Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and driving out demons. What did Jesus say? No. And it's not that Jesus didn't care about those people or their desire to be healed. Jesus just realized that if he said yes to this request, he'd be saying no to going and telling other people and preaching and letting other people know about the truths of God. He couldn't stay there and continue to heal people and also go and preach to other villages. The whole 1,440 minutes a day thing applied to Jesus as well. And as Jesus evaluated his options, which he had just spent time that morning getting away and spending time with God his Father and being reminded of what was important, he was able to identify which option had greater value for that specific time. He had already been in that city and he had already been preaching and teaching, but also done a ton of healing to a lot of people in that area. But at this point, the people that were coming to him were only coming for physical healing. They weren't coming anymore to hear about the truths of God. So Jesus made the decision to say no to something good so that he could say yes to something of greater value for that instance. He said, it's time for me to move on and start preaching to the next city. 2,000 years later, you and I face a similar situation that Jesus did on a regular basis. We have so many options that are put in front of us on a daily basis, and many of them are good options. They're good things, and we have to decide what to say yes to and what to say no to. Doug Fields, he's a big voice in the student and ministry world in churches. He said this: "What I didn't realize was that every yes I was saying turned into an unspoken no as well, often to the people most important to me." When you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. I think for all of us, this is something that we struggle with to some degree, and there's some seasons where it's a little bit more difficult than other seasons, but we all know what this tension looks like. For me, I can look back at specific seasons and see how this happened in my life, where I was saying yes to too many things, and there's a lot of reasons for it. Sometimes it was just this worry of letting other people down, wanting to please people. It was sometimes that I wanted to appear that I was doing well, I was accomplishing certain things in my life and in my career. There was also just this guilt of not being there for every single person that was reaching out to me, and I found that I was, as a result, saying no to some really important things in my life. What I found is I was saying yes to too many things, and as a result, I was saying no to instances and people like my wife and my kids. And I was finding myself being taken away where I was having less time with them, and they were getting less of my undivided attention. I found that I was saying no to being replenished and finding the rest that I needed. I wasn't taking care of my physical, my mental, my emotional health. I found that I was giving up the time that I really needed to spend with God, to be reminded of my purpose, to be reminded of who God is and who I was to him. That was getting pushed to the side almost every single time. And some of you know a little bit of my story and a season of my life before I came here where I stretched myself so thin, I got to the place where I essentially had a mental breakdown, and my mental and emotional health hit rock bottom completely. It resulted in me almost immediately having to step away from my job and having a period of my life where I had to start figuring out how to be healthy again. I started going to counseling on a regular basis, and I started to look at how does it look for me, Jared, to be healthy right now in this season of my life? How can I protect myself to make sure that I'm healthy going forward? And a lot of it came down to me starting to realize when to say yes and when to say no, and how I could perceive my role in life in the right way. I learned from firsthand experience that when I say yes to something, I'm saying no to something else. And it's not that I shut out now at this point in my life. It's not that I shut out the whole world except for me and my family. I still say yes as often as I can to spend time with people and to help when a need arises. But I'm learning to be okay with the fact that there's sometimes I have to say no because I only have 1,440 minutes in a day. And me being a healthy version of myself is crucial to my life, to my family, and to my faith. The same thing applies to you. When you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And it can be so easy to really struggle and for it to be difficult to say no at times. It's easy to worry about how it's going to affect other people. Is it going to hurt their feelings? Or this uncertainty of how are people going to perceive me? We can even think that we have to stick to this initial plan that we thought was best for our family and for our lives, and we don't want to tweak that plan that we had formed, but we're starting to see pretty quickly that it's clearly adding too much to your plate, and so at times we have to start to come to that realization. But here's the thing that I really want us to take hold of here this morning. You can't effectively love and lead others until you're healthy. You can't effectively love and lead other people until you're healthy. You can try really hard and it can appear like you are in the moment, but if you're unhealthy, you can't sustainably and effectively lead and love the people that God has placed in your life. And if you aren't careful about when to say yes, you might find yourself creating some unhealthy habits that are leading you to not be a healthy person, and as a result, you end up giving your leftovers to yourself and the people that you care about the most. What's one of the things that we sacrifice when we have too much going on in our life? It's a 4-letter word, rest. So often, rest is the thing that we sacrifice when we have way too much going on. And if you want to be healthy, you have to start figuring out how to create and protect time in your schedule to rest. Rest looks different for every single person because we're all wired differently and we all find rest in different ways. But essentially, rest is to replenish. Replenish meaning to fill or build up again. You must regularly have moments where you are being filled up and built up again. Just like your car can't function without gas or electricity, your life cannot function the way that it needs to without rest. Whether you want to or not, when your car is out of gas or energy, you have to pull over. You can't just start rubbing the side of your car and say, we can go a little bit further. Come on, let's go a little bit further. If you're out of gas, if you're out of energy, you have to pull over and fill that thing back up if you want to keep going down the road. It's the same thing for our lives. Whether we want to, whether we think we have time to or not, when our lives get to a place, we have to pull over and rest and be replenished if we want to continue going down the road. If you're getting pulled in 100 different directions by saying yes too often, you can't find the rest that you really need. And it's resulting in a less healthy version of yourself. And you can't effectively love or lead the people in your life until you're healthy. What do you need to start to figuring out how to say no to some things in your life so that you can have the time and the space to be able to rest and be healthy, maybe for the first time in a long time? And there's some different aspects of our life, some areas of our health that we have to be really mindful to take care of, to give the necessary attention to protect if we want it to grow. So I want to walk through those really quick in the rest of our time. The first one, as you can imagine, is our physical health. Our physical health is something that we have to pay attention to, take care of, and protect if we want to grow as people. And one of the biggest parts of our physical health is our sleep. Do you get the right amount of sleep on a regular basis? The National Sleep Foundation guidelines advise that adults need 7 to 9 hours of sleep and teenagers need 8 to 10 hours of sleep. That's not per 3 nights like you may be hoping. That's every single night you need to be getting that sleep. The quality of our sleep dictates our energy level the next day. That's important. But we don't give it the value that we need. We sacrifice sleep for so many different things in our life, of things that have little to no value, and we don't even second guess it. And we don't get the sleep that we need, and then the next day, we don't have the energy, the patience to be the kind of people that we want to be. Another thing that you have to do is start to look at, what does it look like to exercise in a way that's healthy for my life? The Mayo Clinic recommends 30 minutes or more of exercise 3 to 5 days a week. And the reason this is so beneficial is because God created your body in a way where exercise releases chemicals like endorphins and serotonin into your brain that enhance your sense of well-being. It can also improve your sleep, which is like a positive double whammy right there. Exercise and sleep. It's so important. You may need to say no to some things and begin to have some boundaries so that you can have the sleep and exercise to be able to be a healthy person. Another area of health that we need to be mindful of, that we need to take care of, that we need to protect is our mental and emotional health. There's some parts of our mental and emotional health that we need to protect and some things that maybe we need to create. The first one that we need to protect from is maybe having breaks from the phone or technology. For some reason, any spare moment that we have, we feel the need to fill it with our phone. It's like this magnet to our phone. It's like an extra minute, and we're like, that phone's coming to my hand. And then we get it, and we start scrolling aimlessly through social media. We feel the need to immediately go to the news and see what's happening in our country, what's happening around the world. We feel this need to know the drama that's happening in people's lives that we know, and even people that we don't know. We feel it with the phone and with technology. What might healthy moderation of technology look like for you so that you can start to have some moments where your mind can rest? It can improve your mental and emotional health. Something you might need to create for your mental and emotional health is times for hobbies and fun to happen. It sounds odd to say it out loud, but maybe you need to give yourself permission to have fun. As more responsibilities add in life, especially when kids enter the picture, it's easy to put self-care and activities that you enjoy to the side. And oftentimes we do this as a selfless act because we're like, I need to take care of my family, I need to do the things I need to. And we don't realize, unfortunately, that by not taking care of ourselves and not doing life-giving activities, we're actually leading and going down the path to burnout and bitterness. And when that happens, you aren't healthy and you can't effectively love and lead others until you're healthy. The biggest part of finding rest in a restless world is to make time to spend with God. Your spiritual health. That's one that we tend to spend the least amount of time thinking about. One of my favorite passages in the Bible is Matthew 11, 28 through 30. It says this, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." No matter how full your life may get, no matter how many options are placed in front of you on a regular basis, no matter how overwhelming it feels, God calls us to take it, all of that, and to walk to Him and start to find rest in Him. For us to go to Him and not let the anxiety and the stress and the burdens of our world consume us and weigh us down, but to actually go to Him on a regular basis and start to lay that down and start to find rest in Him. And as we do that, as we go and we make it a habit to spend some moments praying and just meditating and listening to God speak to us, as we spend some moments reading the Bible, we see that God starts to fill us up. It's an activity, it's a thing that happens where God starts to fill us up with His love and His peace and His strength and His comfort, enough for that day. And then as we go to Him the next time, we have just enough for that day. And what God places inside of you, that is what you're able then to take and go and to love the people around you with. It's through that overflow that we actually start to love our family and our friends and our kids and our spouse in the way that we really desire. But you have to create space for that to happen, which means you might have to say no to some things in your life. Figure out what's most important to you and then create a plan to protect it and to allow it to grow. Every week you are given an already full menu, and it doesn't take very long into the week for more and more options to be placed in front of you, for there to be more requests, for more demands to pop up. And some of the options are going to be good options. They're things that you're excited about, good options, things you want to pursue. But you have to then decide, what am I going to say yes to and what am I going to say no to? Everything can't hold the same weight and the same value. When you make everything important, all you're really doing is making nothing important. And side note, I want to point out that there are going to be times to sacrifice, to go out of your way to help other people. There's times where God prompts our heart, we feel this tugging in our heart where we realize that person needs help in a way that's very specific, that's going to require me to go out of my way, and it's going to require me to sacrifice some time, some energy, some resources possibly, and God wants us in those moments to step in and help meet needs in the way that person needs their needs met. But what I've seen to be true is that if we're healthy on the back end, if we're working really hard to be mindful of the way that we're living our life, and if we're healthy, we're actually able to step out in those moments in a much more sustainable, effective way. If we're healthy individuals and we're putting that as an importance and a priority in our life, we can actually lend a helping hand a lot more over a long period of time of our life. This may be the first time that you slow down long enough to even consider the pace of life that you're running at. Maybe it's been a really long time that you've even stopped and looked around and thought, where am I right now in my life? What is happening in my schedule, in my calendar? What is the kind of pace that I've been living for year in and year out? This may be the first time that you slow down long enough to really consider, what am I saying yes to? What am I saying no to? Am I just having an ongoing yes, that's my natural response? And in each situation, you may have to ask yourself, if I do this, what will I not be able to do as a result? Or what will I be sacrificing? And then you ask, what is more important? And just like Jesus did, you may have to say no to some good things so that you can say yes to something of greater value. Allow people that you trust to come into your life and to start having those discussions as you start to figure out and wrestle with, what does it look like to live my life in a way that's healthy? It's going to take practice. It's going to be a process of learning when and how to use that powerful word no. But it's worth the effort because it protects the most important things. It leads to improved physical and mental and emotional health. It leads to you finding the rest and being replenished in a way that creates a healthy pace in your life. It leads to growth in your relationships to where you can be way more intentional with your family, with your friends. It leads to a deeper relationship with God where you find your trust and dependence on God growing on a regular basis. The upside and potential are too great to not give this a try, to not give it the time to really process what it would look like to say no to the things that you need to say no to, and how you can start to be a healthy person so that you can effectively love and lead the people you care about the most. I always love to be able to end our time on a message like this in a very practical way and to be able to hear stories of real people. And so I want to share a story, have a story shown that talks about someone that goes to Timberlake. His name's Roland, and how when he allowed God to enter his life, when he stopped putting up these barriers, he let God come in. He was actually able to start loving and leading the people around him in a much more effective way. So let's check out Roland's story.
And my name is Roland. I've been coming to Timberlake now for just about 2 years. Born and raised in Hawaii on the Big Island. I've always been blessed to have that family environment that always loved me so deeply. My sisters were much older than me, so I was blessed to not just have one parent. I felt like I had three that was always there to take care for me. And grandparents took me to church, a Catholic church. I didn't really understand much about religion other than I love both my grandparents dearly, and I wanted to be there with them. Unfortunately, I lost one of my grandparents at a very young age, and I remember seeing my grandma in her casket in church, and that's still a visual that I see, and I had no want to go into church. How could someone that everyone speaks so highly over would allow this to happen? I kind of resented God. And for about 15 years, I really didn't step foot in the church. When I was 18, flew up to Arizona and started my automotive career going down to UTI, and spent about 2 years there and decided to fly up to Seattle. I met my wife at work about 10 years ago, and we really grew together. We decided that we wanted to start a family, and it was important to us we wanted to find a foundation. Really, I look at the people that follow religion. I like to see how they raise their families, the morals that they grow up in, and that's what I wanted for my family. I got an auntie of ours that she went to church, and she told us the experiences that she was having here at Timberlake. So me and my wife, we decided, that was the sign we were waiting for, and we showed up. The first service that we attended, we sat in the family room because my daughter was extremely young at that time. We sat, we listened, and we laughed, right, making jokes, and me and Karina looked at each other and says, this is actually pretty fun. Maybe we give it another try. So we finally made that decision we wanted to let the Lord into our life. This really changed our lives here, right? And changed our outlook and has made our relationship stronger, between our family and friends, between me personally and the Lord. Fast forward, here's 2 years. And we get up in the morning looking forward to every week coming to church and hearing the message and trying to take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and really put it into my own mix. We now reevaluate what's important to us. And it's important to us that we put the Lord, your God, in the center of us, and we really build our lives around Him. So Karina and I, we got baptized maybe 4 months ago. I was baptized at a young age as a Catholic, and my wife was not. And we decided that this is the step forward that we wanted to do in our family. It was definitely an excitement. Really, it's a fresh start, and that was really what I looked forward to the most, was really a fresh restart on life. I want to be the best father that I can for my daughter, and I want to be the best husband that I can for my wife. If it wasn't for the Lord really touching me
and helping me reevaluate what is important and what is not important. I don't think I would be the father I am today without his guidance.
Maybe like Roland, the step that you need to take here today is to let God into your life for the first time ever, maybe for the first time in a really long time. If that's the step that you feel like you're at today and you can't think of a time that you said yes to Jesus and made the decision, I'm going to start to follow God. I'm going to figure out what that looks like as I go, but I'm going to start to follow God. If you've never made that decision, you feel like that's what you need to do today, I'd love to talk to you, me and one of the pastors afterwards, and be able to share what that looks like to follow God. You can also grab one of our resources. We have some boxes at a table here at our Connection Center, and it just has some resources on what it looks like to follow God. Love for you to take that step here today. As we finish up our time here today, I want to encourage you to start processing what this looks like, to start to put into practice some of the things that we were able to talk about today. I hope you have a great rest of your Father's Day. Like Jason mentioned, we've got soda and some candy there in the back. Please take some. If not, I'm going to be chugging sodas all night long. So please take some with you. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for spending part of your Father's Day with us. We'll see you guys next Sunday. Bye.